Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike, we're the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video we're looking at issue 46 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine and the Branchwych model that came with it for the Sylvaneth part of the collection. We'll be looking at the magazine, painting her up and then using her in our game where the forces of order are trying to defend a Soulpod Grove from the Gloomspite Gits and their allies. Having a look through the magazine, first of all, we have the Night Haunt. These are the unquiet spirits of the mortal realms, typically the souls of murderers and criminals who've been condemned never to rest as punishment for their crimes. And they are led by Lady Olinda, the Mortarch of Grief, who, just like all the other Night Haunt, is being punished for her crime of killing her own family. And she exudes an aura of grief and misery as she goes around the battlefield. And it says here the various Night Haunt are afflicted differently depending on their crimes. And now they are organised into great hosts called processions, which haunt the mortal realms and seek to inflict the same misery on the living. Now, some more background on the realm of metal, which fittingly for a realm in constant flux has an abundance of wild magic that's easily and readily available to use, and so it draws all sorts of sorcerers and wizards, but also scientists hoping to harness the magical power to create wondrous artefacts. And then there are some more locations of interest detailed on the next page. And we have the start of a new ongoing story called Nature's Gambit, which details the story of Mielinai Forest Blessed, the scion of a unit of tree revenants, who in this story are fighting against some grots and herds of squigs. And then as we move to the next page, they're given an order to retreat, which they don't fully understand. And then they inquire this of the arch-revenant Elveruth, who then explains to them that it's not always the case that just fighting for the sake of fighting, but protecting the sacred areas is more important. And also hints here about the coming of a great leader of the grots as well. Now we have the battle record for the Branchwych, which are a certain kind of forest spirit of the Sylvaneth, whose job it is to collect the Lamentiri of the Sylvaneth, which are sort of essentially vessels that contain their souls, and so when they're destroyed, the Branchwich's job is to collect these and make sure that their memories and the collective memories of those who came before them are not lost. Although they're also powerful wizards in their own right, so as usual you can roll for their traits and keep a track of their deeds. And the build guide for the Branchwych, who only goes together in one way, so fairly easy to follow the guide, but again, be careful with some of the fragile parts. And then her painting guide, she's basically the same as the other Sylvaneth, although she is accompanied by a bitter grub, which is painted with a base coat of corn red on the outer carapace and wraithbone on its underside. And these are shaded with Nuln Oil and Gryph-hound Orange respectively, so adding a slightly different colour to the model. But that's what she looks like up to this point, and so she's now ready to take to the tabletop. So I'll hand you over to Mike, who will take us into our game.
So first up we have the warscroll for our new Branchwych. As you can see, she's got a 7-inch move, 5 wounds, a 5+ save and bravery 7. She has 2 weapons, her scythe, which has a 2-inch range, 3 attacks, hitting and wounding on 3s, might as well rend 1 damage, while the snapping mandibles of her bitter grub companion have 1-inch range, d3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, no rend 1 damage. She's also a wizard and can cast and unbind 1 spell. She has an ability called Fury of the Forest, which gives her +1 to hit and wound rolls with her melee weapons while she's holding within 9 of an overgrown terrain feature or friendly wildwood, which won't be relevant for a little while, but we do learn about that rule eventually. And she has her own unique spell called Unleash Spikes, which has a casting value of 5, a range of 9 inches, and if it's successfully cast, you roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified casting roll for each enemy unit within range, and for each 5+, that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. And here you can see some little tutorials on all of her abilities, so you can see an example of Unleash Spikes, so do remember you have to roll separately for each unit that's in range, and it doesn't state that we will learn about the Sylvaneth battle trait for having overgrown terrain in a future issue, which means she will be able to use Fury of the Forest eventually. And then just a reminder that the bitter grub is technically a companion. I'm not really sure why, seeing as it's on her base, it's the thing on her shoulder, but it gives her some extra attacks. So now we have the background for today's game, where a group of the Force of Destruction have stumbled across a Soulpod glade being tended to by a Branchwych, which obviously the Stormcast are going to want to defend. So for our two forces, for the Forces of Order, we have the Branchwych, the Knight Judicator with his two Griffhounds, and it says Ilthari's Guardians. It doesn't mention Ilthari herself, and usually when we have these Underworld's warbands, it does mention having both halves of it, so we're just going to assume it is just Ilthari's Guardians on their own. And then option 1 is a choice between the 5 Vindictors or 5 Vigilors, and option 2 is between 6 Griffhounds or 5 Tree Revenants. Whereas for the Forces of Destruction, we have the Fungoid Cave Shaman, the Loon Boss, the Sloggoth, the 20 Moon Clan Shooters with the 5 Fanatics obviously hidden inside. And option 1 is between the Gut Rippers and the Beast Skewer Killbow, whereas option 2 is between 10 Hogrot Slitters or the 3 Bolt Boys. And today's game is Strangle Glade. So having a look at the deployment map, you can see the order, it's effectively the reverse of the previous issue's mission, so the order territory is in the middle where the destruction territory is either side. And we have 3 objectives this time, one right in the centre of the board and the other 2 are vertically away from it along the board edge. And again, as the reverse of the previous game, the order forces will be setting up first and then the destruction player, and we'll roll it off for priority. And it's the same victory conditions. You get 1 victory point if you control 1 objective, 1 if you control 2, and 1 if you have more than your opponent. And then the special rule for this game is that if a Stormcast or Cruel Boys unit makes a charge roll and it's a double, then that unit is ensnared by all the tangling vines of the glade, and they are unable to make a charge move, so the charge fails. And here once again you can see some highlights of Ian and Eve's playthrough and what they chose, so you can pause and hopefully zoom in and have a close look, and we'll get our game set up and get straight underway. So here you can see 2/3 of the battlefield, probably the 2/3 that are going to be relevant for this game. You can see the order of setup in the middle of the board. And I've decided to deploy all my forces on one side because all the objectives are going to be the same distance apart either side, and I think it might be better to have a united front against the Stormcast and the few Sylvaneth. And so for terrain, we have 6 pieces set out. The fountain there with the Sylvaneth huddled around it is arcane. There's a mystical skull just off to the left of the camera. The crystals are sinister, while everything else, the Sarlacc pit, the skull and the pool of green goo, are all very inspiring today. Have a look at the order deployment.
Yeah, so actually going over my choices, I picked the Vigilors so I could get some ranged shots in further, at the cost of the armor save the Vigilors obviously, and the Griffhounds over the Tree Revenants, because the Tree Revenants are slow and the Griffhounds might be useful for sacrificing to the Fanatics essentially. So the Griffhounds are at the top of the board, going to head to Objective 1, the Vigilors are in the middle on Objective 2, the Knight Judicator and his 2 Griffhounds are a bit further down, going to take Objective 3, whereas the Branchwych, who we named Rainilth of the Wellspring, is by the Arcane Fountain to benefit from that, with the 3 Ilthari's Guardians, and the Arch Revenant will be the General. She'll have Master of Magic and the Seed of Rebirth and also Flaming Weapon, and my Triumph is going to be Inspired.
And from my deployment, so at the top we have the Shooters, obviously with the Fanatics inside, and we realised we didn't name the Fanatics, but I don't think anyone would really care about their names, so they're just going to be the Fanatics. I'm sure they've long since forgotten their names as well. Below the Shooters we have the Loon Boss and the Fungoid Cave Shaman. The Cave Shaman will be my Warlord, who'll have Master of Magic and Flaming Weapon, while the Loon Boss will have the Vial of Magical Venom, and my Triumph is going to be Indomitable, because we're bad bravery all round. And then I took the Cruel Boys and the Bolt Boys as my 2 choices, and they are below the 2 heroes, and then finally the Sloggoth at the bottom. And yeah, I didn't mention it, but you can see objectives 1, 2 and 3 along the middle of the board vertically. Now we're rolling off for priority. Now, I won the roll-off. I think I will choose to go first, so I might be able to damage the Stormcast before they can take any objectives. My dirty trick is going to be Noisy Racket as usual, and then we can head into Destruction turn 1. So, heroic actions. Cave Shaman failed heroic leadership while the Branchwych succeeded, but the Cave Shaman did get me an extra command point with his own ability, and he's going to try and cast Mystic Shield, which he gets with a 9.
I'll try and unbind. I get +1 because of the arcane terrain piece. We failed, but we can reroll because of Master of Magic. That's still an 8, so still failed.
Mystic Shield is going to go on the Gut Rippers, and then we're just going to advance forward, potentially do some charging. No redeployment from the Forces of Order. And we're going to start shooting with the Shooters, and they're going to shoot that unit of 6 Griffhounds at the top there.
And I'll use all that defence on them for a command point. It's only a 6+ save, but that's better than none.
So I also used a command point to give the Grots all-out attack, so 35 shots turn to 29 hits, turn to 10 wounds.
And we have a 6+ save with all-out defence, which we made 1 of, so that saved a wound. We lose 4.5 Griffhounds, I think.
Now we've just got the Bolt Boys who are going to put some shots into Ilthari's Guardians.
And they get a free all-out defense per once per turn, which they will use now.
So 4 shots on 2s because the Bolt Boys didn't move, and 6s are mortal wounds instead. So there is some mortal wounds and 3 hits. These wound on 3s. Only 1. And there is...
Yeah, well, the bowman does have cover, so with all-out defense as well, this will be back to her base 5+ save, which she failed, so she dies, and then 2 mortal wounds will kill another one.
So only 1 member of Ilthari's Guardians remaining. The Crawl Boys are going to declare a charge, but first I think they're going to use their scare shields on the remaining member of Ilthari's Guardians. So Ilthari's Guardians are bravery 6, so he is spooked, but I still have to make a fairly long charge. An 8 isn't going to be enough, I think, because the fountain's in the way. I won't bother re-rolling, I don't think.
So that brings us to the battle shock phase. I'm going to spend a command point to keep the Griffhounds around, and then have to roll for the last member of Ilthari's Guardians. Will Galangan stick around? He will.
That is it, and I obviously don't get any victory points, and the Force of Order do start with control of Objective 2, because they start on it, and we'll head into Order turn 1. So the Loom Boss and the Branchwych both generated a command point with heroic leadership.
Then I'm going to try and rally the Griffhounds for a command point. I might as well use the free one I've just generated, and we get 2 back. That's actually quite good. And then for a spell, I'm going to try and cast Unleash Spite because the Gut Rippers are within the 9-inch range, and it's more powerful than Arcane Bolt. And we need a 5, but +1, so that's actually a 10.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try and unbind that. I get a 10, so I will have to re-roll because of Master Magic. No, it goes off.
So it does go off, and the casting roll, the unmodified casting roll was a 9 though, so I roll 9d6, and every 5+ is a mortal wound on the Gut Rippers. That is 5.
Yeah, so that's 2.5 dead.
Then for movement, the 2 Griffhounds from the Knight Judicator have come down towards Objective 3 to take that. Both of the 2 remaining Sylvaneth ran away from the fountain. The Galangan only got a 1, but the Branchwych got a 4. And the Knight Judicator has moved on to Objective 2. The Vigil's moving towards Objective 1 at the top. The Griffhound's going to take it, but staying near the Vigil's for their Squawking Cry ability, and making sure the Vigil's are in range of things to shoot. So we move to shooting, where the Vigil's are going to shoot at the shooters, because the Gut Rippers have Mystic Shield on them.
Yeah, and you know what we'll do? All-out defense on the Grots.
I'll use all-out attack so that we're hitting on 2s with these 11 shots. 9 hits. But we'll be winning on 4s because it's still back around 1 and there's a noisy racket going on. Still get 5.
5+ saves because they've got their banner, which gives them +1 against ranged attacks, and then all-out defense, but -1 from Rend. Now we made 2, so that's 3 dead Grots.
And the Knight Judicator is going to shoot at the Bolt Boys to try and get rid of them. 2 shots on 3s. Oh, we've got a miss. Wounds on a 3 because of noisy racket. It did. It's -3 damage.
Yeah, so it's going to kill 1.5.
But that will be it for my turn. I'm obviously not in range to charge. I will take control of all 3 objectives and gain 3 victory points.
Yeah, now we spend a command point. Yeah, I'll spend a command point to stop the Grots having to take a battle shock test. For the Bolt Boys, they lost 1. The other 2 run away. That was a bad choice. And then the Gut Rippers lost 2, so they lose another 1. Yeah, so that wasn't quite part of the plan. And we'll be rolling for priority.
Aha.
Oh no.
Well, I suppose I will go first so I can get some more shooting in.
Yep. Order turn 2. Loom Boss and the Branchwych both got great leadership. I'm going to spend a command point to rally the Gut Rippers, see if I can get 1 back. Nope.
And then I'll just try and cast Mystic Shield because nothing else is in range. We succeed with a 10.
I might as well try and unbind. Nope. But I can re-roll. Nope.
The 4 remaining Griffhounds have gone out now that they've taken Objective 1 to stand in the fate of the Grots. As I said, their job is to draw out the Fanatics and probably die horribly. The Vigilors remain, making sure they remain wholly within 12 of the Griffhounds though, so that the Squawking Cry may take effect. And the Branchwych is behind the Vigilors, who had Mystic Shield on them, and my remaining other units are just consolidating around Objective 2, staying back as well so we don't get charged, hopefully, if the double turn goes against me next turn. So then we move on to shooting, where the Vigilors are going to shoot at the Grots again.
And I think I'll do all-out defense again.
And I'm going to do all-out attack again, with the free one from the Branchwych.
Both using our free command points.
It's 10 hits. No noisy racket anymore though, so 3 is 6.
5+ saves. It's not looking good. No, it's not good. 6 dead.
And the Knight Judicator will shoot at the Grots as well, because the Gut Rippers are still quite a long way away. So 2s, because the Vigilor shot at them, and 2s to wound. 2 at -3 damage.
It's going to be another 6 dead. So the Fanatics are going to pop out behind the Grots. Don't quite have enough range, I think, to cover the Grots with their 3-inch weapon range and stay out of range of the Vigilors, so I'd rather they didn't get shot at. So the Griffhounds should be able to charge safely.
Yeah, which they will attempt. So not a huge roll, but remember doubles do fail for Stormcast units because of all the vines. But an 8 is fine, and that's not a double. So they can charge like that, getting one of them within half an inch, but none of them are within 3 inches of the Fanatics, so that we avoid the fights first effect. But then I can pick them to pile in and fight now, so they can do that and they'll all be able to get in range. And they're all in range, and we have 17 attacks, and I'm using all-out defense. And I'm using all-out attack.
Yeah, I'll use all-out defense, and the very slim chance I managed to save a Grot.
So 17 attacks, which hit on 2s, because it's -1 from the net, but +2 from the Vigilors and all-out attack. Oh, get one in the box. We all hit. No, 16 hits. 4s to wound. That is 7 wounds.
No rend, so 7 5+ saves. We made 3, so we do in fact save a Grot.
So we've then used their darting attacks to make our free retreat move, leaving that one poor net over there.
Yeah, and I will spend my triumph to keep him around. And I think that's it. 3 more victory points for the Forces of Order, because they control all the objectives, and that's more than I have. So we'll be on to Destruction turn 2. Also, no extra command points from any heroic abilities or otherwise, and I'm going to spend a command point to rally all of the Grots. Probably the biggest rally roll in the entire series. Got 19 dead. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back. Spore isn't going to be in range, so the Shaman's just going to try and cast Arcane Bolt, which he gets with an 8. I'll take that.
Try and unbind. Fail with an 8, but I can reroll much magic. Nope, it does go off.
Put that on the Gut Rippers again. Sorry, I said Arcane Bolt, but I actually meant Mystic Shield. And then my movement, do need to get towards the objectives fairly quickly. So down in the south, all of these 3 units have run. The Shaman gets up to the fountain. The other 2 units are going to get in range of objectives next turn. Unfortunately can't charge. Up in the north, the Grots are going to stay where they are, while the Loon Boss and the Fanatics move towards the Griffhounds. And then in the shooting phase, we've got a few bows now. They'll shoot at the Vigilors, I suppose, maybe try and do some damage. The 5 shots from the Grots did a wound.
I've got 3+ save with Mystic Shield though. Yay.
So in the charge phase, I'll do the Loon Boss first. He gets a 9, that's definitely enough. And then the Fanatics will also charge. They get a 7. So the Fanatics are going into the front of the Griffhounds, which are just outside of 9 inches, so they can't get unleashed held by the Vigilors. And obviously they go first. So I've got 3d6 attacks from the Fanatics. Yeah, not entirely sure what I said, but it was 5d6 attacks. And I got 11, hitting on 3s because we are all in range of the Sluggoth. So that's going to be 9. And then 3s to wound, getting 7.
Well, I have no save and I only have a 7 wound in the unit, so even with the D3 damage, it's all good.
Well, then the Loon Boss was just going to madly dash out in front, get close to the Vigilors, not quite enough to pull them in range. And that is going to be it for this turn. And essentially, if I don't win the turn roll-off, the Order will win. They'll have an insurmountable lead, holding all the objectives. So I'll have to find out. And rolling off.
No, I won.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go first and I'll get 3 victory points at the end of the turn even though I do nothing, which means I'll just win by default because it would be 9-0.
Yeah, maximum I'll be able to get is 6. So yeah, that will be an Order victory. Bit anticlimactic, but sometimes games are like that. And we'll recap it for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 46 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. How did you think that went?
Well, obviously it went very well. I do think it was going to be a tricky scenario for you, given how far away the objectives were from your deployment zone. It meant that you had to take 2 objectives in turn 3, and even if things had gone better for you with shooting and whatnot, I still think that would have been true, because I can just take all 3 objectives at the start. So you have to win the turn roll-off in turn 3 and get those objectives before I can score 9.
Yeah, if I had won that turn roll-off, I think I would have been in a fairly decent place. I would have been able to get 2.
That said, if you'd made that charge in turn 1 into the remaining member of Ithari's Guardians, you would have had a unit much closer, which might have helped. So perhaps that was a mistake for me to do that and I just got away with it.
Yeah, I do think if you put all of your units along the centre line, you can basically just take all the objectives, and it probably would have been better for me to split up my forces. I forgot about the Knight Judicator's Light of Sigmar, and it probably would have hit my entire army if you'd used it, and if I had split up, then you can't really just run away. So I'm kind of relying on making some charges to get the extra distance I need.
Yeah, because you don't really have any fast units at all. Really.
Yeah, but it was basically the same as the previous issue where one player will get up to 6 victory points fairly easily. Basically, if they can hold on. And actually, there being 3 objectives rather than 2 means it's easier for you to hold more than me and still get all the 3 victory points. So
yes, I could have abandoned 1 and still held on to 2, even if you.
Essentially, one player can build up a huge lead that basically the other player has 1 turn to influence the game.
That said, I was still also pretty happy with my army and tactics. I think that using the Griffhounds to just draw out the fanatics did work. Yeah, and keeping them near the Vigilors meant that you had to deploy them at the back and all that sort of thing, which, yes, the Griffhounds got horribly mauled for it, but if we'd carried on, the Vigilors probably just shot the fanatics to bits, and then the Loon Boss by himself can't take the objective all that easily.
Yeah. And then we got the Branchwych, and I think I did roll off camera to see what would happen if I'd shot her in the first turn. She would have died, so, I mean, debatably, that would have been a better strategy. Technically, in the full rules, I wouldn't be able to, because you're not allowed to shoot heroes who are on foot from more than 12 away. But we don't know about that in the magazine. But we wanted to see what she did. And there's a lot of potential damage she can do with Unleashed Spite, so I imagine it's going to be fairly swingy. Mm-hmm. And she's not terribly good in melee or particularly durable, so it is a bit of a risk to get her in amongst things.
She's a slightly more traditional wizard in that she's quite fragile and easy to kill if you can pin her down. But yeah, her spell is quite good. If you roll a decent high casting roll, if there'd been more things in range, for example, I'd rolled a 9 on the casting roll. That's 9 dice. It's potentially 3 mortal wounds to everything within 9 inches, which is pretty good. It's got a higher. It's the same roll to cast as Arcane Bolt, but it has a much higher damage output on multiple things. To even approach that with Arcane Bolt, you have to get into melee with them, which obviously you don't want to do with a wizard like this. So. And we don't have the Sylvaneth spell lore yet, of course, either, but there are some decent spells in there, so if we ever get it, actually.
I think also she'd be able to teleport around using overgrown terrain and so forth, which we will get eventually. So
yeah, because she has her other rule that keys off something we don't know about yet as well, which might come in handy. Yeah,
and it is a pretty cool model. Once again, being a character, it's going to be really good value for money. I don't think she's that expensive. She might be a bit of an older model.
I have a feeling that you can't actually get her outside of the Vanguard box set for the Sylvaneth at present.
I believe that is the case.
So this is a way to get that character, but actually if you're collecting a Sylvaneth army, the Vanguard box is quite a good way to start, because it's very good value for money in its own right. So you might already have a couple of her if you buy some of those.
Well, I suppose if you were really desperate, you could possibly use a Tree Revenant or something with the Glaive. Count that as a sickle. Or maybe the Ilthari if you wanted to proxy or something else. But anyway, I don't think there's too much more to say about this game or this issue. It ended a bit anticlimactically, unfortunately. But as always, if you liked the game or this content, do leave a like and subscribe. And we'll be carrying on with it even as 4th edition comes out. We've got to get this magazine done eventually. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.